What do you feel when you hear this? Nostalgia? Excitement? Inspiration? This song and its accompanying project came out over 4 years ago. If you were there for its release, maybe you remember how new and exciting the scene was at the time. And if you remember the project itself, maybe you remember how influential it was for the funk genre and its evolution for years to come. This is Caramel by Back When. In March of 2016, it premiered with Issue 1, the first project from a newly assembled funk collective called Purple Posse. In the days and weeks leading up to the release, some of the scene's biggest up-and-comers like Soudier and Back When announced their involvement and teased a collab tape that was on the way. This was especially exciting news for fans, as funk collectives up until this point had largely failed to deliver projects consistently. Usually, groups would either drop a single project and never be heard from again, or they would remain an amorphous entity that didn't even have a tangible presence on SoundCloud. Fans desperately hoped that Purple Posse would shake this pattern, and boy did they deliver. Issue 1 would be one of 5 tapes they dropped that year alone, each one further stoking the flames of an ever-growing scene in the underground. And while it would have been easy to achieve this by just pumping out compilation tapes full of solo tracks, Posse didn't cut corners. While the tapes do have their fair share of standout solos, Caramel included, it was clear from the beginning that collaboration was at the heart of these projects. Issue 1 opens with a remarkable 3-way lab between funk legends Mythic, Paolo, aka 666, and Soudier. And that sense of collaboration carried through the rest of the year, with issues 1 through 4 generating a total of 25 collab tracks. This was the moment funk listeners had been waiting for. But there was a reason we look back on 2016 so longingly. The Posse's output naturally declined after such an explosive year, but they were still finding ways to spice things up and evolve the sound. You may remember I said they dropped 5 tapes in 2016, but I only mentioned issues 1 through 4. Well, as 2016 came to a close, they dropped their first Purple Party tape, a shorter EP-style project with more experimental selections. In their debut appearances, Him Beats and Shaq France brought a proper chopped and screwed sound to the tape, while Immune's solo offered a unique blend of garage house and trap. Moving into 2017, Posse continued pushing the envelope by experimenting with new recruits. Issue 6 brought with it the addition of Caspian Rose, formerly Courage, and it also featured one-time appearances by John Brizzy and Watermain, the voice behind this iconic line. Purple Party 2 marked the end of the group's 2017 releases, and while it may not have been as stylistically experimental as its predecessor, it certainly highlighted how far Posse had progressed the sound. For the most part, 2016 funk was still largely inspired by DJ Smokey's production. Tracks had grittier mixes, relied heavily on Memphis vocal samples, and employed slowed-down tempo switches reminiscent of DJ Screw. But by the end of 2017, funk had evolved to be much more contemporary, with cleaner mixes, more modern vocal samples, and double-time tempo switches. With how much they experimented through their first 2 years, it would be foolish to think that Purple Posse didn't have a strong influence on this progression of the genre. 2018 brought with it some notable challenges for Posse. Sometime after issue 6, 2 longtime members had left the collective. Back When, the group's founder and manager, and Jake, arguably the group's most experimental artist, bowed out to pursue solo projects instead. While such a roster shakeup would typically choke a collective's momentum, Posse navigated the situation pretty well, with issue 7 continuing to live up to the fans' expectations. Soudier rose to the occasion and filled the leadership role left by Back When, while Aseri started genre bending like Jake had done previously. But just when Posse was beginning to regain its footing, they were dealt a tragic blow by the death of Him Beats. He was said to have brought a uniquely lighthearted, whimsical energy to the group. Having lived in San Antonio, he also offered a distinctively southern sound, often paying homage to great Houston legend and funk forefather DJ Screw. And as one of the collective's most active members, his absence would certainly be felt by fans who appreciated his unique approach to the genre. While filling the void left by Back When and Jake may have been difficult, filling this void would be impossible. Understandably, the group would take some time to heal before releasing another project. Despite all its challenges that year, the collective didn't stop looking for ways to push the sound. They continued recruiting rising stars in the scene like Tony and DJ Young Vamp, who debuted on issue 8. While Purple Party 2 demonstrated how funk had progressed by the end of 2017, so too did issue 8 for 2018. The tape was littered with an attention-grabbing fusion of funk and jungle, which had usually been relegated to the occasional Jake track, but was now catching on throughout the scene. That said, however, I think issue 8 also highlighted a more concerning trend within the group. Fans who had been around since at least 2016 may have noticed a familiar track on the tape, Robbery by Paulo. This entry on the tape was actually just Paulo's portion of a collab he had done with Soudier all the way back in 2016. This to me seemed to indicate a gradual decline in activity from members in the group. After all, it was around this time that Asiri had pulled all of the tracks from his profile, with Gravy doing the same. And Paulo hadn't uploaded any tracks that year at all, so it wouldn't shock me to find out that he just didn't have any new tracks to submit for issue 8. And this isn't to say that the group's music got any worse necessarily. In fact, issue 8 was one of my favorites. But oftentimes, when collectives fail, it tends to be the result of inactivity. And nobody wanted to see Purple Posse, with all its influence on the funk community, fail. Then, issue 9. Truly a masterclass in funk if you ask me. Without any drastic roster changes to worry about, the Posse had more time to focus on creating a tape that would stand the test of time. As far as experimentation is concerned, issue 9 certainly wasn't reinventing the wheel, but it didn't have to. This was each Posse member at their best, unapologetically embracing each of their distinctive sounds. It felt like 2016 again. Purple Posse was uninhibited, untouchable, unstoppable. Then, in a cruel turn of events, Mythic passed away in August of 2019. News of the tragedy reached all corners of the underground, with everyone from Ginseng to Young Simi paying their respects. His discography not only included collaborations with funk legends like DJ Smokey and Gregor, but also a number of renowned solo tracks like Servin' Fiends, I Got the Stick, and Red Bottles. As a prolific veteran of the funk community, Mythic's death sent shockwaves through the scene, spawning several tribute tracks and posthumous collabs, which are still popping up over a year later. His chopped and screwed blend of trap and Chicago drill would be sorely missed, not to mention his positive attitude and general willingness to help others. Mythic wasn't just a talented artist in his own right though. He was also an extremely skilled collaborator, often able to highlight the best aspects of another artist's style. Outside of the Purple Posse tapes, this was no more apparent than on his 2016 EP, About to Lose My Mind, which featured collabs with the fellow Posse members Soudier, Paulo, Asiri, Gravy, Shaq France, and Sidon. His genius-level ability to collaborate had been a cornerstone of Purple Posse's discography. Of the 58 collab tracks that had appeared on the Purple Posse tapes, 26 of them involved Mythic, nearly half. This time, not only would Posse have to cope with the loss of a brother, but also someone who truly fostered the sense of collaboration that helped them get off the ground in the first place. This led the group to make some slight adjustments to the format of their tapes for issue 10. In addition to their official roster of artists, this tape would also feature some of the genre's most prominent acts, namely DJ Smokey, Jason Rich, Gregor, Slight, and Roland Jones. And with this being the last installment in the issue series, it made sense for them to bring on some special guests to celebrate the collective's success. I think issue 10 was a perfect send-off to the series, even though it might not have been my personal favorite. First off, the tape embraces the collaborative spirit that made fans so attractive to the group in the first place. Part of what made Purple Posse so appealing in the beginning was that fans could hear some of the biggest up-and-coming funk producers working together. Issue 10 recaptures that feeling by featuring not only funk legends like DJ Smokey, but also more contemporary up-and-comers like Roland Jones. There's also the fact that nearly half of Issue 10's tracks are collabs. One of the tracks is even a three-way collab, which hadn't been seen on a Purple Posse tape since Issue 7 over 2 years prior. Another reason I think Issue 10 was a perfect conclusion of the series is because, like Purple Party 2 and Issue 8, it serves as a time capsule for how much the genre had evolved. For example, Soudier and Paulo's collab on Issue 10 sounds nothing like their collab on Issue 3. By 2020, funk had started embracing the Mexico drill plug sound, which had swept the underground producer scene in recent years. This progression of the genre is perhaps most obvious in Soudier and Paolo's Issue 10 collab, with its use of a short 808 as well as the pluggier drums that come in during the second drop. Purple Posse's tapes didn't just reflect funk's evolution over the years, they directly influenced it. If you saw funk gravitate towards a particular style, then you saw that style being implemented on a Purple Posse tape. It'd be easy to conclude that that group merely imitates whatever style is currently popular. But let's not forget that many of these artists had been cultivating successful solo careers alongside their involvement in the collective. By putting out experimental solo releases, Purple Posse members acted as role models for aspiring funk producers looking to hop on the next hot sound. And whenever the next issue tape rolled around, Posse members would show off new styles that had taken off because of them. Do you really think something as weird as jungle funk fusion would have trended if it weren't for Jake? With how much influence they've had on the funk sound, it's no wonder that Purple Posse has spawned dozens of other collectives. Groups like Always Proper, Holy Mob, Fiend Club, they're all finding ways to expand on what Posse did for the genre. Always Proper dug out a niche in the lo-fi, gritty Memphis style, Holy Mob is helping to grow the funk scene on Spotify, and Fiend Club is diving into the beat-selling business with their Fiend Clips series. With the Issue series coming to a close, it'll be exciting to see what Posse has in store for future projects. They apparently plan to have something else out by the end of 2020, so we'll have to wait and see if that pans out. With fewer and fewer official roster members maintaining an active profile, I suspect they'll continue to collaborate with outside artists. But if their previous work is any indication, whatever the Posse does next is sure to usher funk into yet another new era. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you're new here and you want to see more of these types of videos, be sure to subscribe. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, so I'm going to start doing these in addition to the daily uploads I'm already doing. If you got any new suggestions for future videos, be sure to let me know in the comments. Anyways, peace out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.